women who stand with and for one another. We want to set the example for future female leaders to come, and we're passionate about cultivating and fostering inclusive environments, both of transparency, trust, and advocacy. We want the WOC to be a place where women and networks feel that they can come, that they receive value, that the information and programming we deliver is really helping them further their purpose in the community and within our local communities. And so we're really, really excited today to be able to present this program with you from one of our talented members, who's also a co-founder of her own company, but I'm not going to steal her thunder. Thank you to Hudson County Chamber, to Maria, the president, and to Melissa, who also runs this in conjunction with me. And I think that's about it. I'm Elke. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask, but I'm excited, just as you guys are, to hear this great program today.
Elke, it's okay. You can steal my thunder.
Well, in stealing the thunder, allow me to do the honors. I've had the privilege of knowing Andrea for a little while now, and I can say that she is quite a visionary woman. Her ideas and her sense of grandeur never seem to let me down. She certainly is a woman that is passionate and talented in her field. She has a tremendous work history. She has been able to help small business owners, large business owners. She works both on a local and a national level. We have partnered and collaborated on several things in the short time that we've known each other. And it really is a privilege to know such another, talented professional. And so without further ado, I will hand the mic over to Andrea.
Wow, I'm not paying you for that, Elke, by the way. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, I am the CEO and co-founder of Comms Nation. We are a PR and graphic design or creative design agency located in Weehawken, New Jersey. And I've worked with billionaires, millionaires, middle class, every class that you can think of. Anybody, any sort of demographic. I've worked with all the demographics. I've sold to the demographics. And yeah, it's a very interesting time right now because everybody's scared, but also I think everybody has high anxiety because they're trying to figure out exactly what is going to happen next. So I don't know if you guys have been doing a lot of research, but for the past couple of months, I've been trying to study the 1918 pandemic to see how their buying habits have actually changed. And so there was a little bit of similarities of things, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'm really excited to talk to you about PR. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. And Elke, if you have any questions or if you want to start off the conversation, because I wanted to do this more as like a conversational piece with everybody involved, just because everybody has different questions and not all the information will fit for you. So just let me know.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, has anybody ever, does anybody know what PR is? I see you smiling, Bruce.
Andrea, why don't you, I think it's a great question to start out with. When I work with a lot of my clients, I work across many different verticals, and I will say that marketing and PR has always been a little blurry for them. Is PR marketing? Is it just, what exactly is it? So this is, I think, a great question to open up with.
Yeah, so basically every time I talk to any business owner, they'll stop me and they'll go, I don't need a press release. So I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you a press release, and most likely you don't need a press release. Most likely you need something that's a little bit bigger, sort of a campaign. And so what I like to say to clients is that anything that you literally do is PR. Just because everybody now has a phone, everybody has a channel, everybody has basically a medium, a way to project what they feel and what, kind of like not hijack the news, but do whatever they want with it. So when it comes to PR, it's really important that everybody understands that literally anything that you do is PR. So we're going to start there. So not to, I know that's a little heavy, but let's go to the next one. So pivoting your business to match your current customer needs. And I think some of you had already talked about what you're going to do when it comes to pivoting, or you're kind of trying to figure out what you want to do. So just know that no one knows what they're going to do unless you're like a corporate company. So it's okay to not know. It's also okay for you to try new things. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to kind of give you a roadmap, say, here's the map, but do whatever you need to get to the end, basically.
Andrea, do you feel, quick question before we move on, do you feel that because our global, obviously our global economy has changed, our national economy, our local economy, do you feel that this has given birth to sort of a new opportunity in which PR is really going to be moving to the forefront, or that businesses are, you know, that how do you feel that the sort of change that COVID has been a catalyst to is going to affect the marketing industry? That's a more succinct question.
Oh, but I'm so biased, so I'm going to say yes, of course. PR is going to be number one. I do think that people are starting to understand the difference between a marketing campaign and a PR campaign, because before they had separated it, and they would always leave this thing that's called the marketing gap, which means you're pouring lots of money into campaigns that are not working for you just because you haven't actually established any sort of brand foundation, right? So PR needs to happen before you start spending money on ads. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of people are like, oh, Google's giving me like $500 in free ads, or Facebook is giving me this in free ads.
Yep.
Your ads are showing and nobody's buying. There's a reason. It's because there's a gap. And the way to close it is through communication and building that bridge with them. So I always say you have to build your brand, build your PR, then spend as much money as you like on all your marketing and AdWords that you want.
As a business consultant of the group, I will say don't spend as much money as you want on marketing.
Well, I mean, hey, then there you go. But I do think that in order to make marketing dollars last and go further, because now marketing budgets are being cut across the board by 30%, right? So if you're cutting it across 30%, you only have so much in your budget to do with. So if you're going to spend all of that rest of that budget just on AdWords, but it's not working because it didn't work before, guess what? It's not going to work now. So, yeah, so I do think that PR is going to be the forefront. I mean, everybody has a Twitter. Everybody has a way to communicate with people. And it's really about establishing messaging. It's about establishing, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so I'll get back to your, to the thing. Okay, so repositioning checklists. These are the 4 items that you're really going to need in order to move forward with your pivoting. And so why are we talking about pivoting and PR? Because everything you do in the pivot is actually going to help you establish that PR within the next 3 weeks. So let's say we're opening in 3 weeks, right? All of the processes and plans that you put in place now will ultimately be the talking points of your PR when it comes time to broadcast to your audience, or if you decide to go to media, or if you decide to produce content. So right now, your plan needs to have all 4 of these involved. And I think the biggest one, the one that I like the best, is that your customers have completely changed the way that they're going to start buying. And it's very interesting. We'll get back into the, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but these are the 4 that I really think that if you can get and answer these 4 for your business, or for your position within your business, or a business, or within your sales. I know Kylie was talking about the sales. If you can figure out the 4 key areas for this, I really think you'll be fine. I think you'll be okay. So this one's my favorite. Leaders are born in times of crisis. It's very true. Leaders are born in times of crisis, as we have seen in all Winston Churchill. We've seen a lot of other leaders. Not to compare us to Winston Churchill, but if we had to. So right now, the leadership is lacking. I'm not going to get political, but leadership is lacking. Everybody's scared. Everybody is trying to anticipate what's going to happen. This is your chance as a business owner, or someone who holds a position within a company to become that leader. And it's really important that everybody kind of just take a step back and realize, well, what can I do to help my community? How can I actually envision my next steps? Because at the end of the day, everything you do now is going to really set you up for after COVID happens, right? The goal is to make it to the end of COVID and beyond up. So I can't even this is the best time to make yourself a leader. Like if I could tattoo it on my forehead, I would. So in any field, in any of the space in your community, in the marketplace, whatever it is that the end of the day goal it is that you want, you can honestly, this is your time. So get to work, okay? Do you have any, Elkie, you good? Okay, so when it comes to reopening, these are the 4 things that you're gonna obviously need. Follow your CDC guidelines, work with local and state governments, get creative when it comes to your planning and whatever it is that your customers want, and then put that plan in place. I think the biggest thing that people actually miss is that they think, oh, somebody else is gonna do this. Well, if somebody else, like it works with your local and state government, I know they're creating consortiums of some sort to reopen the places or the towns. If you wait for someone else to do it, you are handing, again, over that leadership to that person. So if you want to be a leader, this is your chance to say, well, wait a second, I think that for what business I have, maybe I need delivery right in front. I was Hoboken. Hoboken, they have a bunch of parking, but everybody that wants to get anything curbside, they have to double park in the middle of the street. So obviously something's got to change. So it's up to you as whatever position you're in to honestly step forward and say, I want to work, I want to help with my local government. I think that's the biggest point that a lot of people miss. Sometimes people get lazy, but it's okay. All right, so let's see where you are, Alfie. All right, putting your employees' health and safety first. Obviously, that's a given. Everyone here loves their employees. Everybody wants them to be healthy, happy, and not do any bad tweets. So really try to focus on the health and safety and just the overall emotional health of your employees. Because at the end of the day, they have mouths, they have fingertips, they have access to social media. So your employees are actually like tiny PR agents running around the city talking about how great your boss is or how great this business is to all their friends and everyone that they encounter. So remember, every single thing is PR. I think that's going to be my my mantra. Alrighty. Do we have any questions at this point? Everybody's listening, content?
Fantastic.
Eileen, I believe you had a question.
I put it in the chat because I didn't want to interrupt, but when you were talking about the things to be doing right now that will ultimately impact what happens later and how it will benefit our business later, like what types of things do you think people can be doing right now in this moment to get that positive effect post-COVID? In terms of helping out your community?
Everything needs to be really thought out. Like really think about this, because if they're predicting it's going to come back in the fall, or if they're predicting it's going to come back 2 years from now, or somebody said it's never going to go away, you have to have a long-term and short-term plan in place, because your short-term plan will help you get through this. Your long-term plan, your short-term plan will help you get through this moment, but the ultimate goal of the short-term plan is to jump into that long-term plan at the end. Do you have anything specific?
No, I was just curious if you had heard of any specific examples of maybe something you're doing specifically in your business, or if you've seen other businesses do something really impressive that you've come across and you're like, oh wow, that's a really good strategy for them right now, that's going to pay off.
Yeah, I think honestly, any tiny little thing that you can do as a business in order to help your customers is a huge thing. Just because sometimes, especially with bigger corporations, it takes fire race. So anything that you can actually do, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Corporations take a long time. So if you're a small business and you become a resource to people, that actually helps you and aids you in the long run to make more sales.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered the question.
And I can share too, Kylie, you know, from a consulting perspective, you know, I belong to a number of different consortiums of consultants, and I could say I've seen probably a 70% drop in, you know, our initial consultation fees. You know, I think the sensitivity, and I think this is examples of what Andrea is speaking to, is that all of our behaviors, all of our interactions, they matter, right? Every one of us is feeling the hit of COVID and what that's done to business. And so, you know, we've made that, you know, we've sort of lowered the bar of entry, if you will, by saying, okay, you know, I'd normally charge X amount of dollars for a consultation fee. That's being waived during this time, you know, really putting our foot forward and saying, we want to help you, right? Come talk to us. We want to help you. And I think Twitter daily, you know, as I look at things, is full of really clear examples of what not to do, right? Where you have businesses just completely failing to take care and serve their community and serve the people that have been loyal to them. And, you know, they send out certain messaging, or, you know, even in Jersey City, here's a really interesting example. You know, Mayor Phillip really worked with Uber to adjust the pricing of the Uber Eats surcharge, right? There was an additional surcharge that was happening in our community in Jersey City on a lot of the different community forums. This sort of blew up. You know, it went from a couple little people talking about it to people actively saying, order from the business direct. We're no longer going through Uber Eats, right? So Uber made this move as an organization to add an additional surcharge, and that really had a ripple effect. It's unfortunate because it affects a lot of those individuals that are still trying to maintain their revenue streams, delivering Uber Eats and things of that nature. But once individuals found out that additional surcharge wasn't going to the driver, it wasn't going to the small business, people came together and said, well, we're just going to pick up the phone and, you know, call Sam's Pizzeria directly, or we're going to call Renata's directly. We're not going to go through Uber Eats. And those are all sort of micro examples of where, you know, Andrea made a great comment about all your customers are like little mini PR agents. Well, that was like a little mini PR opportunity gone bad, and Uber took the brunt of it.
Well, we don't have enough hours in the day to talk about Uber and all the mistakes that they continuously love to make. They're just like attracted to crisis. I don't get it anymore. But yeah, I mean, Kylie, there's so much that's happening. The other day I ordered from 16 Handles, and I don't download apps like that just because I don't have space on my phone. But I'm finding that I'm actually downloading the apps, making some sort of a profile, and then delivering curbside. So everything's curbside, just like anything to make people's lives easier. But we're going to actually talk a little bit more about that. So getting back to the presentation real quick, for, again, your customers, they've been catapulted into 2030 buying habits, okay? So since they've been catapulted, they're 10 years ahead of you. They're expecting you to catch up to them today, or if not yesterday. It's actually kind of mind-blowing to see how many businesses are not prepared for e-commerce or the digital age. It's kind of weird. It's actually scary. Just because I think it worked so well, then all of a sudden now they're forced to actually change their habits and ways that they're selling. So a couple of things I mentioned, the new e-commerce platforms. Anything with touchless or mobile payments is the best to go. I don't want to give my card to anybody. I don't want to touch anybody's fingertips. No, I do not want to put my debit card in. So anything that's touchless, like literally, I don't even want to touch a door. If you have the door open, I'll walk in and I'll buy something. Update your website. So I thought it was really interesting because Hong Kong is giving away money to all of their business, or not to all, but smaller businesses, in order for them to update their websites just because they weren't up to par with what's going on now. And secretly in my heart, I would love to see an actual sort of grant be given, like maybe in a PPP loan somewhere, that will help businesses with their marketing. Because I mean, yes, I would be helpful in that, but at the same time, it's showing you who was not prepared and who was really not prepared, and like who's on the verge of closing. Build an app. That's an obvious one. Get professional signs made. Okay, if we're driving down and then it looks like, you know, you had a crayon and you went out and you bought a poster board, it's like, we are open. Come here and eat. Are you going to actually order from that place and eat from them? No. Everybody's looking at me, but I know you won't. Okay. Flyers, takeaways, because again, Hoboken, Jersey City, they're discussing, should we just close down an entire street? This way people can walk around and we can start getting money infused into the local economies. Well, if nobody can enter your store, how are they going to find you? What is their takeaway going to be? If you literally give them a flyer, a sticker, anything, something that's memorable at this point. Because I feel like a lot of sales are going to be happening from these smaller stores, brick and mortar, outside on the curb. I feel like Craigslist. Okay, so I love partnerships. Elke and I actually went into a little bit of a partnership for a while, and it went wonderful. So many clients, so much business. Network, please network. Pay attention to your local economy. Pay attention to who your neighbors are. Pay attention to who your competitors are. This is probably the only time in business history that I will ever say, call your competitors and come together and decide, you know, how can we actually help one another? This is the time. This is the only time where it's okay to find somebody that you can partner with, to have some sort of an agreement of some sort. I have other ideas for this, but I'm not going to go that crazy with it. Does anybody have any questions about strategic partnerships, or have they been thinking about partnerships? Do you have competitors?
I think we all have competitors, and that's, you know, I love to hear that recommendation put forward. And again, disclaimer, I'm not getting paid for any of this, and this isn't a sort of pre-recorded skit. And I think that it's a tremendous recommendation to consider, you know, who are your competitors in the space. And this is not necessarily the time that we are actively pivoting ourselves against one another, but, you know, really when you look throughout history at how businesses, conglomerates, and different industries have come out of global impacted periods of time, there's a lot to be said for opportunity to capitalize together and to work together to leverage your strengths and to be able to find the win-win, even though you're traditionally a competitor in the small space, right?
Yeah.
So I love that recommendation.
Yeah, and I also think it's really important for towns to really get involved with their small businesses. I mean, there's a difference between saying we're going to help our small businesses, and there's a difference between actually helping them. So again, it's about how do we get that message to audiences or to your consumers or to whoever it is that you're selling to, that you are open for business, and also your competitors or everybody else is open for business. It's just letting people know that you're open at this point, which is actually a crazy thing in business right now. And evolve your brand. You know, the last 2 months I've had clients who are really interested in just completely doing a massive overhaul of their brands. Like the emotional toll of a rebrand is just so much. So instead of, you know, jumping off that cliff and saying, we're just going to completely redo our brand, why not take the tiny steps to actually evolve your brand rather than, you know, putting in so much investment in just what your values are and trying to redo everything. I do know a lot of PR people that are offering special rebranding workshops and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to do all the work. So I think it's easier to take those tiny steps and really think hard about, you know, what kind of brand do you want to be? And also this works for people. You know, when a person says brand, it also means you as a person. So how do people see you? How do people find you? Are you the best at what you do? How would I know, basically? So somehow figure out at the end of this, how do you want to set up your goals and design your brand for yourself and design a brand for your business. And it's true, the only way to interact with customers now is through messaging. You can't, go hug them. You can't shake their hands. You can't do the hokey pokey unless they're 6 feet apart. So yeah, the only way is to actually craft the message. So this is where the PR stuff comes from. All right. So does anybody have any questions about their messaging or what their audiences are saying, or nothing? Okay. Oh, Melissa, you're muted.
Do you recommend a program or application that can be used to do massive message?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the process in place already for all of the emails or all of the phone numbers, then yeah. I think what's happening now, especially with small businesses, is they didn't have in place some sort of list or way to track how their customers came in. They would just like simply give them the money back or make the exchange, and it would be a done deal. But instead of, prolonging the entire experience in order to make repeat customers come back, this is, again, your chance to put in place processes to help you through the summer, through next year. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. All right. So these are a couple questions that your audiences want to know. This is literally what they want to know. And it's important for you to place yourself in their shoes, because you are in their shoes. So what are you doing to keep your customers and employees safe? What are your plans for the next month on reopening? And how will this affect me? I think my favorite one is, what are your plans for reopening? Because it gives me as a customer a guideline as to what I should and can expect. And I can mentally get ready for my shopping experience with you. Or if you're saying, I'm talking a lot about brick and mortars, but if you guys have I know some of you work for digital places. So if you have any questions on that, I can kind of give you a little bit more curtail. All right. Service-based businesses, like I said, rethink your sales interaction with customers. They are all worried. They're home. They don't know what's going on. They are trying to go outside. They're trying to get tan from the window. So they're trying to figure it out. And so imagine if you had sent them an email, they're like, oh yeah, I need to get this done. It's all about, again, rethinking how do you interact with your customers. So, and the next one would be the package offerings. Some agencies now are offering packages, as I said, that are only for a COVID time. So you understand that money's tight for people right now, but you need to eat as well. So it's important to reshape your package offerings that are in line with the moment, but let them know that this is not going to be forever if you are giving them a discount. And as you said, Elke, I know that we talked about this earlier, the insert inbound marketing tactics. You like the surveys, email, just some way to get a hold of information and data that will help you with your marketing in the future.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, I think that right now I'm seeing a lot of clients, especially in my space, pivot and say, does it make sense to spend this much money on marketing? Does it make sense for me to invest X, Y, and Z? Right? Because our business doors are closed. And, again, I'm very strategy forward. And so my constant reply is, well, what is your business strategy and how does that align to your marketing strategy? A big part of marketing really is both outbound, but it's also inbound. And there's great value to be had from being able to check in with your clients, being able to, keep your finger on the pulse. What do they want? What do they need? What are they expecting from you? If you're a small business or if you're, in business and you don't know what your customers are looking for, that's not a fail, but we have opportunity and there are resources to be able to reach out and ask them, poll them, get information from them, so that you might then be able to glean some more insight, some more inspiration on how to best serve your customers, right? Maybe they might say, hey, can you just keep the door open all day long so that I don't have to touch it? Or is there a way to, let us know what some of the specials are going to be, in the next coming weeks, or what day you're going to have inventory of something, right? So that customer feedback is fantastic, but it also serves as a marketing opportunity by keeping you on top of their mind.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Everything you said. Always smart, Elkie. That's why we bring you around. So as you said about the open door, I mean, that is actually a CDC and Small Business Association or administration tactic, is literally to keep the door open so people know that you're open for business, which is kind of crazy because you would think that having lights on meant that you were open for business, but now it's doors open. And so I'm seeing a lot of different businesses actually bar people from entering the door or the entrance place of wherever brick and mortar they are, just so that they'll interact with your salesperson. Again, your employee. So if your employee is mad at you, well, then you know how that's going to go. So again, so with these key message points, these are just some of the things that I thought were going to be top of mind. And they are top of mind, actually, for how your customer wants to hear what you have to say to them. These are all the things that they want. Again, it's about, talking with empathy. It's about your approach to them. Big key is to start off with how your safety is going to be, or how you're going to keep whatever it is safe. Spotlight how wonderful your employees are. Again, this way employees are happy. And so I do think, going back to the safety one, a big one right now for a lot of digital agencies or digital offerings, service offerings, are the security, obviously, of everybody's data. So that's the biggest one. So again, try to, with everything that's happening now, everything is uncertain. So the more you can make them certain about you, the more that they're going to want to buy whatever it is that you're selling them. So lead with safety, and that all counts. Talk with empathy, Kylie, as you were mentioning how you want to, when you sell to your customers. So yeah, invite customers back with new offerings, whatever that looks like for you. Again, spotlight awesome customers. I would do that maybe on a Facebook, or I would do that somewhere where it's a separate post. This way they can share it with their friends and whoever. And then obviously that, how that works. Highlight your direct geographical area. This is a big thing that real estate agents do in their marketing, is they will walk around and they'll just take pictures of really pretty things. This way, when you go on Instagram, you'll say, let's say Union City, and you're like, oh wow, this area is so nice. Well, it's because it's curated by a real estate agent who wants you to buy their house. So again, this is the time to spotlight your community, to spotlight your geographical area of wherever your brick and mortar store is, or if you are digital. Again, it's about bringing happiness back in, bringing empathy back in. And the number one thing, this is not about you. Nobody wants to hear about you, okay? Nobody wants to, as sad as that is, but everybody cares right now about themselves. So they only want to hear about how you can help them. And if you make it about you, it's a little bit of a turnoff. I've been seeing a lot of these articles out about, well, we need to open our doors because X, Y, and Z, but you're not telling the customer as to why they should actually come through and buy your product. You're just saying, well, we need to open these doors because of this. Obviously, it's a separate message, but what business owners and people are doing is they're trying to hijack a news story that's talking about the PPP or something else, because they will say, oh, well, this will give us exposure. The wrong exposure, bad exposure. Do not do that. I know that in New Jersey, they have that gym opening, and everybody was, yeah, political, whatever. But the business owner's past is now becoming the actual main talking point. And in the past, I think something with a DUI and somebody had died, and something about other political affiliations. So it's not turning out the way that he expected it to. And it will never turn out good if you try to hijack a news story for something else, because a reporter is not your friend. They do not care about giving you free exposure. They care about their story and giving a true story to whatever they're trying to tell. So again, no reporter is your friend, okay? So this is not about you. This is about your customer at the end of the day. I think I have one more. I think we're almost done here. And educating your customers will bring them back. It's the easiest way. It's the easiest way in order to bring customers back. All right, it's done. I'm tired now. Please ask me your questions.
Andrea, for a business who has, traditionally not ever dabbled in PR, what are some of the things that you could share with them, top 3 things for them to keep in mind when looking to work with a new PR agency during this time?
Okay. Well, don't spend your money on stupid things, okay? Just because you've heard someone else say, well, I did this tactic, doesn't mean that that tactic is gonna work for you. Mm-hmm. And it's really important that you don't waste your money, because right now you need that money for as much as possible. Do you really need a press release? Most likely, no, you don't, because it's not gonna be something that's so crazy out of this world. Can it be told in a blog post? Probably. A couple of other things I think that people don't realize with PR is that how in depth it actually goes. And so if you're looking for a PR person, and it might not be me, so if you're looking for someone, I would really want to know exactly, like, can they get into my head? Because the more that they can get into your head, they can spot opportunities that you're not even looking at, right? So when it comes to PR, it's a really big game. And I think that it takes a business owner or person, whoever it is, brand person, to really step in and be like, I'm really in this for the long haul, because half of my job is actually just pulling clients up a hill. And at a certain point, I just put them on my back and I'd have to start running, because people get scared. People don't want to put themselves out there for whatever reason. So 50% of my job is literally just pulling clients to just move forward. So just be emotionally and mentally and physically ready to take on a PR person, because they will beat you up. No.
Any questions from the audience? Any specific questions maybe around your business? If you're in business and maybe you're not a business owner, how might this apply, or anything that you guys would like to ask? I think everybody's muted here. So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, but meanwhile, I'm getting fucking letters and every 2 days, every fucking day, telling me that I better use the money and take it back.
What money? The money that you got?
But
Hey, Andrea, this is Candace.
Hi.
Hey, so I wanted to piggyback. I definitely concur with becoming a resource for your community, whether it's locally or through the internet. Becoming a resource has been really good for us, because now, I know for us, a lot of the brick and mortars have reached out to us regarding resources that we've been providing, just asking for more detail. So I definitely concur with that aspect of it. Definitely make yourself a resource. Also concur, do not make it about you. It's never really about you. You've gotten to business to provide some kind of resolve to your client or prospective client's pain point as it is. So that automatically right there takes you out of the equation. So no, don't make it about yourself.
Yeah. I think it's a pitfall that a lot of people just fall into just because they don't know what to do. And so Candace, you probably have seen it with clients that you've had, that they'll come to you and when you look at it, since you are an expert in it, when you look at it, you're kind of like, oh man, there needs to be so much for me to do, just because they weren't trained. And so what happens is that there's a lot of DIY, and please do as much as DIY as possible as you can. But at the end of the day, know that experts can bring you farther. Like, I'm not an expert in a lot of stuff. So if I'm not an expert in marketing, or you're in marketing, right, Candace?
Yes.
I would reach out to Candace just because that's not my expertise. So I think the interesting area falls in when clients come to me and they're like, well, we've spent money on this and this didn't work. Well, you didn't ask the right questions and you hired for the wrong thing. So it's not that anybody was wrong. It was just that it just wasn't the right timing, or it wasn't the right mix, because the customer themselves is not educated in how a campaign should be run.
It's their, and I hate to say it, it's their lack of knowledge that really, like, they're almost on it, but then it'll be certain things like they don't understand SEO.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, it's little small things, or they don't understand that, okay, you don't have to post 50 times a day, but if you post good content once a day and keep them engaged, then they'll be there throughout this whole thing, whether you're updating them on store procedures or, listen, me and the staff, we're overwhelmed and we have to take a break. Just let them know what's going on, because they want to know too, because they're invested. Mm-hmm. And then that way, you know, when you do reopen and you start making a decision to say, okay, you know, our county has said that, you know, we can do this within these guidelines, they're saying, you know, and they're comfortable with spending their dollars, you're going to be at the forefront of their mind.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen any interesting client stuff happening? Like crazy? I was like crazy.
I wouldn't necessarily say crazy. It's definitely, like, I've gotten stuff from like colleges and universities, which I think is really interesting because they actually have a marketing department on most campuses.
Yeah.
And I guess it's all about the fresh eyes or a different aspect thing, but that's been my biggest thing. Like, they've reached out, but you know, I live in my community, so I want to make sure my community is taken care of. And, you know, whenever they reach out, you know, that it's a priority for us. I know, like, one of the first things we did when, you know, everything started shutting down was, first and foremost, we started doing free social media audits. And just to make sure that a minimum that their social media outlets were on target with what their purpose was and what message they wanted to convey at the time. And then, you know, you let them know that this is not set in stone. This is something that it's a guideline that you're supposed to come back to. And sometimes it needs to be changed as you go along or get closer to fully reopening or partially reopening. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also like throwing the playbook that you have now kind of out the door, or just not looking at it. Just because I think a lot of people relied on what they were doing before to get them through until they realized mid-April, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different because they kept setting the opening date back. Yeah. So then I think that's, people started taking it a little seriously, because I had clients who wanted to transition for their consultations online, and so because they couldn't touch anybody, so they had to do consultations online, and so then they just started like developing a crazy other business side. So now they have two businesses, I guess. But yeah, this is definitely a time to try to pivot and try new things. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is just try new things. This is your moment. This is the time that we have. So take it.
And you know, Candace hit on a couple of really great things that I just think are so important and meaningful, both to the WOC and to the Chamber of Commerce. You know, it's big business, small business, your own business, someone else's business. You know, it's important to look in our own backyard to see, you know, who makes up our community, who are our neighbors. Andrea spoke to that, even if they are our competitors, right? So one of the reasons why, you know, women in leadership and women in business are really passionate areas for me, is that women hold so much potential, right? Women not only have the privilege of sort of bearing children, but studies have shown that they carry communities. And how they do that is because the dollars they earn get reinvested. They get reinvested into the businesses in their local communities, and those businesses in the local communities work together to bring up the environment and that ecosystem. And, you know, it's so important that we together continue to look for ways to not only empower our businesses, but especially continue to elevate women in the workforce, in our own backyard, in our communities. What can we do together to help our businesses continue to, you know, positively look forward and readjust? You know, right now information is on a sliding scale. One day it's 2 steps forward, and next afternoon it's 3 steps backwards, right? So we're all moving in a time of uncertainty right now. Nonetheless, there are steps that we can take to rebuild and to contribute to, you know, a growing and working community again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one more takeaway. I mean, there's a lot of takeaways. There are so many. At a certain point when I was trying to put this together, it was like, I don't know how to just fill it, right? You just don't want to stuff it with things. But remember that things that you do now will be remembered, whether they're good or they're bad. And I think that's a really important area, because a lot of people after, with the corporations and them doing just all these weird shady things with the loans and then doing this and then that, you know, it's not a good thing in the long run. People are going to get mad, and when they get mad, cancel culture comes out, and then they start canceling things. But rightfully so, just because you shouldn't be acting like that as a business anyway. So just keep your head straight, you know, just breathe, as Melissa says, breathe before this presentation. This way I'm not talking too fast. And just try your best. Honestly, if you just try your best as a business owner or whatever position you're in, you will make it through, and you'll be fine.
Andrea, this has been fantastic. Thank you so very much. Does anyone else from the audience have any questions? Okay, well, we'll be respectful of people's time. We really, really appreciate you guys joining us. We hope that this was really valuable and it provided some great insight and inspiration, things that you can take back to your businesses, to team leaders, your business owners, and really start looking at, you know, are we doing this right? Are there some steps that we can implement to do it better? The WOC certainly thanks you. I know that we have many members here on the call, and you know, I just want to highlight all of their contribution, because certainly it takes a village. And Melissa, thank you for hosting and getting us all in here easily. And we will be having another program in the next 3 weeks. Please stay tuned to our the Hudson County Chamber announcements. That's where we'll be announcing our next program. And with that, I will hand the mic back over to Melissa.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that joined us today. We'll look forward to having you again at the upcoming event. Andrea, thank you so much for providing the information, and Elke for co-sharing this. We're gonna let everybody go now. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Have a great day.